I'm Eliza, a 42-year-old part-time employee, and my life is wonderfully full with my husband and our two sons, who are in high school. Our elder son, a senior, is preparing for college entrance exams with hopes of pursuing a career in law, much like his uncle Liam, my brother, who runs his successful law firm. Inspired from a young age by Liam's achievements and dedication, my son aims to emulate his uncle, who encourages him to chase his dreams whenever they meet. Liam, who stepped into a fatherly role for me after we lost our parents early in life, married a woman 10 years his junior. Unlike Liam, who enjoys engaging with our family, his wife tends to keep her distance, rarely visiting our home, which means we seldom see her. This has made it challenging to form a close bond with her, and her consistently somber demeanor often leaves us puzzled, especially during what should be joyful family occasions. Before my marriage, Liam had been a cornerstone of support, and soon after, he followed by marrying his younger fiancée. Initially, we were hopeful about welcoming her into our family, but her reserved and often gloomy presence during their engagement and wedding left my husband and me concerned. Despite our efforts to make her feel included, offering compliments and engaging in conversation, she remained distant, prompting private conversations between my husband and me about her apparent unhappiness. This complex dynamic within our family contrasts starkly with the stability and love in our immediate household, where we nurture our son's ambitions and cherish our time together. As we navigate these family relationships, we continue to support each other, hoping for understanding and connection in the future. Recently, my husband and I visited my brother at his new home, a place so grand it truly showcased his success in the law field. Despite the impressive surroundings, my sister-in-law's absence was noticeably odd, prompting a jest from my husband about her having an abandoned ship. This joke, however, landed awkwardly, only adding tension when my brother explained that his wife was at her parents' home celebrating her mother's birthday. Later, during our visit, my brother, with a straight face, asked us a serious question that took us by surprise. He inquired whether, in a scenario where he couldn't have children, we might consider letting him adopt one of ours. At first, I thought he was joking, but the earnest look in his eyes told another story. While I was stunned and speechless, my husband responded with a lighthearted, "Who knows what the future holds? We can cross that bridge when we get to it if we're all comfortable with it." Despite my husband's casual take, the conversation left a lingering weight on me, intensifying my concerns about the dynamics in my brother's marriage and the profound suggestion of adoption. Over the years, whenever my brother visited, either our home or his, he was always alone, and conversations about his wife became virtually non-existent, her presence slowly fading into the background of our family interactions. This pattern continued until recently, when we celebrated my eldest son's acceptance into his dream law school. During the festivities, my brother revisited the adoption topic, this time with a palpable sense of urgency due to their ongoing struggles with infertility. Once again, my husband responded lightly, suggesting humorously that perhaps my brother might consider our eldest, given his aspirations in law, a field they both are passionate about. While my husband maintained a casual demeanor, I remained deeply thoughtful, considering the significant implications such a decision would entail, not just for us but profoundly for our sons. Navigating this delicate topic requires careful thought and consideration, especially knowing that it involves my brother, someone who has been a pivotal figure in our lives. The concern about how my sister-in-law might treat my sons, who are not her biological children, lingered in my mind. Seeking some peace of mind, I approached my brother delicately to inquire if his wife was agreeable to the idea of adoption. His response, though marked by a wry smile, brought a bit of relief. "Don't fret over her. We've discussed it already," he assured me. While reassured that they had talked it over, I was not ready to make an immediate decision. I decided to involve my sons in the discussion, considering they were in high school and capable of expressing their views. We left the matter open that day. A few days later, the situation took a dramatic turn. I received an urgent call from my brother's lawyer's office informing me that he had collapsed at work and had been rushed to the hospital. In a panic, I hurried to the hospital where the law firm staff, clearly anxious, awaited updates. It turned out my brother had suffered a stroke and was now unconscious. As the law firm staff departed, leaving me alone with my worry, I realized they had been unable to reach my sister-in-law. I tried calling the landline without success and, realizing I didn't have her cell phone number, felt stuck. Soon, my husband and younger son arrived, and it was my son who discovered a smartphone among my brother's belongings. After some effort, we unlocked it and found her contact information. When she finally answered the phone, her initial response was harsh and defensive. "I want you not to call again. I'll take legal action," she snapped. Amidst her tirade, I quickly interjected, "It's Eliza, Liam's sister. My brother has collapsed and is in the hospital." Her tone shifted immediately upon realizing who I was. "Oh, I'm terribly sorry. I mistook you for someone else." "You said he collapsed?" she asked. After I updated her on his condition and the hospital location, her reaction was unnervingly casual. "I'm unable to come to the hospital right now due to prior commitments. Please keep me informed," she said before ending the call abruptly. Her indifferent response left me puzzled and concerned about her priorities, especially given her husband's serious condition. It became clear she wouldn't be much help, so we resolved to manage on our own. With my eldest son having just completed his university entrance exams and available to assist, we prepared to support my brother through his recovery, navigating this challenging time as a tight-knit family unit. At home, my eldest son took on the duty of visiting my brother at the hospital every day on my behalf. Despite our best efforts, my brother remained unconscious, and his condition was critical. Throughout this tough time, my sister-in-law did not reach out or visit the hospital. Nearly a week after my brother was admitted, I decided to try contacting her again. This time, she picked up quickly, her tone shockingly cheerful. "What's the matter? Is he dead?" she blurted out, showing a complete lack of empathy. Trying to keep my composure, I asked her calmly, "He's still alive. Why haven't you visited him at the hospital?" Her indifferent reply only heightened my frustration. "I'm neither a doctor nor a miracle worker. There's nothing I can do for his recovery," she said dismissively. I was so taken aback by her callousness that I ended the call, my anger hard to contain. This interaction made me start to question the real motives behind my brother's sudden interest in adopting one of my sons. It dawned on me that maybe he was facing the reality of not having children with his wife, hinting at deeper issues in their marriage. Out of curiosity, I asked him how they met after their wedding, and he disclosed that they were introduced through a marriage counseling agency. This revelation stirred a mix of emotions in me, particularly the suspicion that my sister-in-law might have married my brother more for the security his successful law career provided than for love. These thoughts deepened my unease, but when I shared my fears with my husband, his reaction stung even more. He pointed out that if Liam were to pass away in his current state, his entire estate would go to his wife since they had no children. This comment struck me hard, especially as my brother had just celebrated my eldest son's recent achievements and brought up the topic of adoption again. I couldn't shake the feeling that his interest in adoption might be driven more by concerns about his inheritance than genuine familial affection. Feeling powerless and unsure how to proceed, I later casually brought up the adoption discussion with my sons. To my surprise, my younger son was quite enthusiastic about the idea, seeing it as an opportunity for a more secure future under Liam's care. Unlike his brother, he was more relaxed about his future, without clear aspirations like his elder sibling, who looked up to Liam greatly. This unexpected response from my younger son added another layer of complexity to an already difficult situation, leaving me with much to consider about the future and well-being of both my sons and my brother. But his response took me by surprise. "I don't want to be adopted," he stated firmly. "As the eldest, it's my responsibility to take care of you, Mom and Dad." His words filled me with pride, yet I couldn't help but feel that my eldest son, with his ambitions to become a lawyer, was actually the more suitable candidate for adoption. Although part of me wanted to proceed with the adoption of my now unconscious brother, various circumstances thwarted these efforts. Despite not wanting any part of my brother's inheritance for myself, the thought of my sister-in-law, who seemed almost eager for his demise, inheriting everything was unbearable. All I could cling to was hope for my brother's recovery, a hope that was shattered when he passed away a few days later. It then fell upon me to inform my sister-in-law of his death. "Can we arrange a funeral?" I asked when I called her with the somber news. Her response was unexpectedly cheerful. "You have the final say. Just please don't involve me in any formalities," she said, ending the call abruptly. Overwhelmed with frustration but holding back my emotions, my husband and I took the lead in organizing the funeral, supported by the law firm's staff. While my husband voiced concerns about the future of the firm, my brother ensured its continuity by appointing a competent individual to manage it, allowing the firm to operate smoothly as a corporation. The funeral was a significant event, attended by a multitude of mourners, which included presidents of major corporations, politicians, and other dignitaries. This massive turnout was a testament to the profound impact my brother had on many lives. As the ceremony unfolded, I couldn't help but marvel at what an incredible person my brother had been. My son helped throughout the proceedings, but his mood shifted as he noticed the influential figures paying their respects. "I should have been the one adopted," he lamented bitterly, realizing just how remarkable his uncle truly was. My husband and I shared in his sorrow, understanding the weight of his realization. Throughout the funeral, where I served as a pallbearer, no one mentioned the absence of my sister-in-law, nor was it a topic of conversation. It struck me that possibly many were not even aware of my brother's marital status. They hadn't had a wedding ceremony, only a honeymoon. Reflecting on this, I harbored regrets. If only they hadn't married, we wouldn't be in a situation where a wife failed to show up at her husband's funeral. As we concluded the funeral for my brother, I found myself regretting not having allowed him to adopt my younger son sooner, especially with the fear that my sister-in-law might attempt to take control of his considerable estate. In an effort to unite everyone after such a solemn event, I invited the attendees to gather at my brother's house for a meal. "Thanks to all of you, my brother can now rest in peace," I announced, my voice heavy with sorrow. Amidst our shared mourning, my sister-in-law made an unexpected appearance, clad in a flashy pink coat, as if her timing was choreographed with the funeral's end. Surprised and suspicious, I confronted her. "Why have you chosen this moment to come?" She responded with a wide grin, loudly proclaiming for all to hear, "As my husband's wife, I inherit his $95 million estate along with his house. With no children in the picture, everything belongs to me." Her declaration triggered laughter from some of my brother's colleagues, which seemed puzzling until one of them interjected, revealing a shocking truth. "We're aware that you're officially divorced." Stunned, I blurted out, "You were divorced?" I couldn't believe that she was no longer legally connected to my brother the day before his sudden collapse. Her face turned cold as she met the eyes of those who revealed the truth, her anger barely contained. Another lawyer added fuel to the fire. "I've also heard you were ordered to pay alimony because of the affair that led to your divorce." Furious, she retorted, "I'm not obligated to pay alimony anymore. There's no one left to pay." However, she was quickly corrected by a legal expert. "The right to alimony transfers upon inheritance, so you'll still owe it to Eliza, the sole inheritor." That was the moment it hit me. With their divorce finalized and our parents gone, I was the last remaining family member, the sole inheritor of my brother's estate. Realizing her position, her demeanor shifted from defiance to dismay as she locked eyes with me, prompting me to take a step back. Yet she remained confrontational. "Don't I deserve half of the estate now that the divorce is settled?" A lawyer, looking with dismay, countered, "Didn't Liam provide you with funds upon the finalization of the divorce?" "I have the receipt certificate." Another chimed in. "He also acquired a house before the marriage, so it isn't subject to property division." Despite the tense atmosphere, she recalled another potential asset with a slight chuckle. "There's still the life insurance. I should be the beneficiary." Her resilience was notable, even as she navigated through this hostile environment. But as she smirked, adding, "I changed the beneficiary of Liam's life insurance to myself." A lawyer promptly disputed her claim. "Liam was resolute, so it's likely he made that change upon finalizing the divorce." Later, as I sifted through my brother's belongings, I found the life insurance policy. However, before I could examine it, My sister-in-law saw it and swiftly snatched the document from my hands. Her impatience was evident as she scrutinized the beneficiary, desperate to find her name there. My sister-in-law's demeanor quickly changed to one of disappointment as she handed back the certificate to me, her shoulders drooping. It was at that moment I realized I was the beneficiary, rendering her efforts useless. Frustrated, she openly shared her true feelings. I married a lawyer thinking he was wealthy, but all I got was a tiny inheritance, and now I have to manage with little alimony. It's a huge mistake. The lawyer present hardened his expression in response, recalling that Liam had expressed similar regrets about consulting a marriage counselor, a decision he deeply regretted. Although my brother never shared these feelings with me directly, his reputation for honesty was well recognized among his peers. Over time, burdened by the need to pay alimony without stable work, my sister-in-law frantically looked for job opportunities. Her lack of dedication resulted in a series of brief employments. In a desperate attempt to secure a quick fortune, she approached a marriage counseling agency aiming to entice a wealthy individual with promises of a profitable marriage. She exploited his trust, but her plan quickly fell apart when he saw through her deceit and reported her for marriage fraud. She was arrested, facing the reality of her schemes. Meanwhile, the lawyer from my brother's firm clarified that no alimony had ever been paid to me. In May, he updated me that with her arrest, any chance of receiving alimony was unlikely. Yet, my main concern wasn't the money. I wanted her to face the repercussions of her actions and suffer the fate she deserved. I was confident my brother would agree, which is why I hoped for a thorough police investigation into her other wrongdoings and for her to be charged and brought to justice. In these events, my family moved into a spacious house left by my brother, a sharp contrast to our previous cramped apartment. The move thrilled my husband and sons. Inspired by the events, my eldest son dove into his law studies with renewed zeal, motivated by the work ethic he observed in my brother's colleagues. He hoped to continue my brother's legacy and excel in law. However, my younger son felt a pang of disappointment upon learning I had inherited my brother's entire estate. I wish I had been adopted by uncle, so I could have inherited everything, he said half-jokingly, yet his smile hinted at a genuine desire.
My name is Paisley, and I come from what you'd call a single-parent household. When I was a child, my father passed away, and since then, my mom has been raising me on her own. I've never felt sad about being part of a single-parent family. Although I couldn't spend much time with my hardworking mom, I genuinely admired her as a woman, as she labored tirelessly to maintain the architectural design firm she and my father had started. I aspire to be a woman like my mom, a go-getter in the professional world. However, one day a terrible event occurred that trampled on my admiration. My boyfriend Mateo is 3 years older than me. We met at a social gathering during college. His family is quite wealthy, and he managed to land a job at a bank through his connections. He's been working as an elite banker. Since we started dating, he's been very generous, showering me with gifts and taking me to fancy restaurants. He can be a bit indecisive at times, but he's kind and a wonderful guy. Recently, Mateo and I talked about our marriage. I just graduated college this spring and started working, so getting married to Mateo right away seems difficult. Plus, I still want some time for myself, but we both agreed that it would be nice to become a family together in the not-so-distant future. Today, I am meeting Mateo's parents, who will become my future family, to get to know them and announce our intentions to get married. It's my first time visiting his parents' home. To make a good impression on his affluent, middle-aged parents, I put a lot of effort into my outfit, hairstyle, and makeup to look charming yet natural. I hope to be recognized by his parents as a woman suitable for Mateo. With these thoughts in mind, I head towards the front door to leave the house. "Mom, I'm heading out. I'm going to visit Mateo's house today," I said. "Oh, right. Make sure to be polite," my mom uttered, who's working from home today, looked up from her computer. "I know. See you later," I said, leaving the house feeling excited. After taking a train and a bus, I arrived at Mateo's house in the neighboring town. It's a huge house, just like out of a fairy tale. I had Mateo confirm his parents' favorite cake shop beforehand, and I bought a cake there. I rang the doorbell of his house. "Ah, Paisley, we've been expecting you. Welcome." Mateo greeted me with a gentle smile as I stepped into his house. When I was shown into the living room, I realized even more how spacious and grand the house was. Not just the size of the house, but also the interior decor was so elegant and upscale that I couldn't help but feel the financial power of Mateo's father, an executive at a major bank. "Nice to meet you. My name is Paisley," I said, slightly intimidated by the grandeur of the house, but still smiling and bowing my head to greet them. "Welcome, Paisley. We're pleased to meet you. Please have a seat. I'll prepare some tea, so please wait a moment," Mateo's mother said warmly. "Paisley, I'm Mateo's father. Welcome to our home. Please make yourself comfortable," added my soon-to-be father-in-law. Mateo's parents were kind, just as I had imagined. They seemed to be the perfect family in a fairy tale world. We started our conversation over lovely aromatic tea, accompanied by the cake I had brought. His mother was a great talker, and his father was a good listener. Mateo occasionally interjected while nodding along to my stories. I thought this harmonious time would last forever, but the moment the topic of my family came up, the atmosphere changed drastically. "So, you lost your father at the age of 5, and then your mother raised you alone, Paisley. She must be a wonderful woman. I respect her as a fellow mother. The fact that you've become such a wonderful woman is a testament to your mother's upbringing. We need to learn from her as parents," Mateo's mother said, seemingly praising both my mother and me. "Yes, my mother is indeed my role model," I replied, feeling hopeful about having a good relationship with my fiancé's family. But then, Mateo's mother changed her tone. "However," she started, "coming from a single-parent household and being self-employed, I'm afraid it's not quite suitable for you to become Mateo's wife." Mateo's father silently nodded in agreement, adding, "It's a matter of trust and stability. We're concerned about potential financial issues and the reliability of such a background." I was shocked. They had just praised me, and now they were using the word unsuitable. I didn't know what to say and instinctively turned to Mateo for support. "Mom, Dad, not this again. What does it matter, her family situation? It's a minor fact," Mateo defended me, but his parents resolutely denied whatever he said. "No matter the reason, we can't trust a family with only one parent. We'd be troubled if we were asked to lend money because of financial difficulties," Mateo's father continued, his expression growing more serious. "Besides, it's not common for a single mother to be able to send her daughter to college. It makes us suspicious if there was another man's support involved. We can't accept a loose woman as a family member. Our family has been bankers since my grandfather's time," Mateo's mother said, her words cutting deep. Their comments were not outright slander, but they hurt even more. Mateo tried to fight back, but it ended with him losing the argument, leaving me out while the three of them argued. "We can accept that you're just dating her for fun, but you should consider the impossibility of marrying her. The lifestyle levels are too different between you and this girl. I think you'll end up breaking up due to differences eventually," Mateo's father concluded. Mateo couldn't say anything back. He just silently listened to his parents. Finally, he turned to me with his head bowed. "I'm sorry, Paisley. I can't marry you after all," he uttered. "What? I'm from a single-parent family, but do I have to give up marrying you for that reason?" I asked, feeling devastated. "I don't want to say this either. Please don't blame me," Mateo replied, his voice strained. "You knew about my family situation for a long time, didn't you? You even met my mother. Do you also think that my family and I are unsuitable for your family?" I asked, searching for a sign of disagreement from him. Mateo, who was usually indecisive in times like this, said nothing. His silence was the clearest answer. He must have thought that marrying me wouldn't be a good match, just like his parents said. I felt sad. I never thought that not only his family, but even Mateo would reject me just because I come from a single-parent household. Paisley, please just go home, he finally said with a strained voice. Honestly, I didn't want to stay there a second longer either. I'm leaving. I'm sorry for the trouble, I said, even though no one tried to stop me. They probably felt relieved that I left. With tears streaming down my face, I retraced my steps and went straight back home. When I got home, my mother noticed my tear-streaked face and asked me what happened. There was no point in lying to her. She knew where I had been and what I was doing. It felt like I was dishonoring my mother's way of life, and I really didn't want to tell her, but I told her everything. As expected, my mother was infuriated by the harsh treatment I had received. Well, so that's the kind of family they are. It seems like your boyfriend Mateo was just going along with them. Certainly a marriage with a guy like that wouldn't last long, so I think it's better not to marry him, she said, trying to comfort me. Mom, I began, but she continued. It must have been tough. You did well. Despite the horrible things I had been told about her, my mom still worried about me and hugged me. Then she asked, which bank does Mateo's father work for? I remembered the name of the bank clearly, as Mateo often bragged about it. When I told my mother, she seemed to understand. Paisley, your mom might not earn a lot, and you don't have a father in the house. It's okay to feel unlucky about that, but remember, you should never feel embarrassed or inferior, she admonished. After your father left, I raised you, always believing this. So I will never forgive Mateo and his family, she added. Even though I had cried my eyes out on the way home, tears began to well up again. My mother's words reminded me of something important. I love my mother very much. I admire her hard work, and I want to be just like her someday. It's ridiculous to deny my admiration for her for the sake of Mateo and his family, who trampled on it for such a trivial reason. The next day, my mother said to me, I checked, and as I thought, our company does have dealings with Mateo's father's bank. I don't want to deal with a bank where the father of a man who dumped my daughter so harshly works, so I'm going to cancel the contract. I'll explain the whole situation. I don't know what will happen, but if they say trust is important, let's make sure they understand that they no longer have my trust, Mom concluded. She called the bank right when it opened, bypassed the loan officer, and asked for the branch manager. Branch manager, she began, we're terminating our dealings with you. Yes, I'm sorry it's so sudden, but it seems that one of your officers has severely mistreated my daughter. If you're willing to hear the details, I'd be happy to come and explain it personally. What do you say? She finished. I heard my mother's conversation just before I went to work. I knew she was going to terminate the contract, but I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't understand what it meant until a few days later, when I got a call from Mateo, asking me to meet him at a nearby park. Mateo and his parents were at the park, his parents glaring at me. Mateo asked me in a troubled voice, my dad suddenly got fired, and when I asked why, they said it was because of my girlfriend. What on earth have you done, Paisley? In those words, I understood everything. What it means to sever a contract. What it means for a banker to lose trust. It all became clear to me. If someone who lends and borrows money based on trust loses that trust, they essentially lose their livelihood. If there's a cause that erodes the vital trust from customers, it must be eliminated. In other words, his father was expelled from the company, as the root of all evils that undermine trust. What I discovered later was that Mateo and his father, just like they did with me, looked down on customers as they were poor, causing them all sorts of problems. It seemed it was only a matter of time before they were fired. The final straw was just a call from my mother. This wasn't something I accomplished through my own strength. I don't possess such power, but it was something my family did for me. I should tell them this, proudly and confidently. You insulted my mother, so she retaliated with her power, I stated. Mateo's father responded incredulously, What? There's no way a company run by the parents of a poor girl like you could have enough influence to get me fired just by filing a complaint? Indeed, the company run in my parents' name isn't that large, but my mother's influence isn't limited to just one design office she runs. Even without direct involvement in management, she holds a position that allows her to influence companies. Now I can fully understand the meaning of all the transactions my mother had with the bank at the time. I'm sure it's something like this. My mom's company itself isn't large. However, my mom is also registered as a non-executive director in several companies my grandfather runs. So what it means to have enough influence over you guys is that all contracts with my grandfather's companies were also terminated. I listed a few of the companies my grandfather manages. The color drained from his father's face quickly. That's ridiculous, he muttered. There's nothing strange about it. After all, he's my grandfather, right? Why would he want to deal with a bank that disrespected his granddaughter and daughter? I concluded. It seemed they finally understood why they were fired. Suddenly, their attitude completely changed. They fell to their knees on the spot, pressing their foreheads to the ground and sobbing. But even with such a spectacle in front of me, I could only think of them as pitiful. Mateo clung to me, begging, Paisley, I'm sorry for everything. I was truly serious about wanting to marry you. I just thought I wanted you to go home for a while, because my parents were being difficult. He started making excuses. Lining up such lame excuses, it was as if he was trying to save himself at least. But I've given up on him too. I shrugged off his feeble arm and told him, My mom is amazing, isn't she? She's my role model. I don't want anything to do with you anymore, someone who disrespects her. I really hate you now. I'm going home because my mom worries. Goodbye, and please never contact me again, I finished and walked away. Devoid of the strength to chase after me, he could only silently watch me leave, kneeling in the same pose as his parents. After that, his family, unemployed all of a sudden, seemed unable to change their standard of living all at once. They started selling off their cars and luxury goods one after another, and in the end, they even had to let go of their house. Hearing the story that my mom and grandpa had gathered through the bank, I felt deep down that I dodged a bullet by not marrying that man. He will likely continue to live burdened with his half-baked pride and continue to struggle financially. I found myself wishing he would learn to live within his means, and my mother and I shared a laugh over this. As for me, I just started living in the working society. There are more things I can't do than can, but I've learned a lot from this experience. Of course, I want to sharpen my judgment when it comes to choosing a partner, but I also want to become stronger myself. Even so, my goal remains unchanged. I want to be a cool working woman like my mother, to protect and support my family like my mom. I want to work hard every day to become a strong woman. My mother-in-law arrived unexpectedly, and, as always, at an inconvenient moment. I was just proving my point to my husband about buying a new washing machine with a dryer, and we were discussing the model when the doorbell rang. I went to answer the door. As soon as I opened it, my mother-in-law burst in and immediately rushed to her son, who was sitting in the kitchen behind his laptop browsing ads for appliance sales. What are you guys up to? Did I hear it correctly that you're planning to buy a washing machine? Is that so, dear? Agnes asked her son. I rolled my eyes behind her back and made a face, causing Kyle, who saw it all, to chuckle and smile. Did I say something funny, huh? She uttered, perplexed. Yes, Mom, you heard it right. We are indeed planning to buy a new washing machine, Kyle confirmed. What for? Agnes asked, genuinely surprised, pulling up a chair closer to her son and peering over his shoulder at the laptop. Then, clutching at her heart, she exclaimed, "How much do they say it is? Have you gone mad?" She raised her voice and waved her hands. "What's wrong? It's a necessary purchase." I shrugged. The washing machine was indeed extremely necessary in our household. The old one was hanging by a thread, often displaying errors for no apparent reason, and it could only handle a small amount of laundry at a time. Since we had twins, the amount of laundry in the house had noticeably increased. Moreover, Kyle, who worked in an auto repair shop, regularly brought home work clothes to be washed, and the old machine couldn't handle them anymore. I began to explain to my mother-in-law the rationale for the purchase, but Agnes interrupted. "Kyle, why are you giving in to her? Let her do the washing by hand. Such a lazy woman. She got used to machines doing everything for her and she grew lazy. Maybe she should hire a nanny for the kids while she gallivants around with her friends. Or hire a cook. Why should she, a delicate lady, stand at the stove?" Agnes said wryly. The conversation wasn't going anywhere. My mother-in-law didn't listen to explanations and stuck to her point of view. Back in our time, people washed clothes in the river and this was perfectly fine. Do you have so much money that you decided to waste it on that nonsense? "No, don't count on me. I won't give you a penny," she stated firmly. "Mom, we didn't even think of asking you for money. We have enough money for this purchase. Who do you think we are? Some kind of beggars? I work. Christy also takes on freelance work at home and soon she'll be working full-time. Plus, we have some savings. I don't understand why you're overreacting like this all of a sudden," Kyle said. "Because I know what will happen next. You'll blow your money now and then what? Come to mommy begging, right? Well, no way. I won't lend you anything," Agnes retorted. "We're not planning to ask you," I said, barely keeping my patience. I stepped out onto the balcony, needing a breath of fresh air to calm down. "What a stubborn woman," I muttered in frustration. I'd known for a long time that Agnes wasn't easy to deal with, but we hadn't had such outbursts before. We never asked her for money, not even as a gift, let alone a loan. From the beginning of our relationship, we decided that if we were building a family, we would take responsibility for all expenditures without relying on help from relatives and friends. Even the birth of our children was carefully planned. We postponed it, knowing that I would be on maternity leave and unable to work for a while. We always kept a ledger of income and expenses, and there had never been any discrepancies in that ledger throughout our married life. The only exception was when, instead of one child, the doctor found twins on the ultrasound. Now, I sincerely couldn't understand what had gotten into my mother-in-law. Sure, she could do something out of the ordinary now and then, like shaving the twins' heads when they turned one, secretly from us, not caring that one of the children was a girl, or going to church and demanding that the priest give them church names, because in the past, children were named more beautifully and according to their birth date. After so many years of marriage, I had resigned myself to such behavior from my mother-in-law, but poking into our family budget was crossing a line, and sticking her nose into my home affairs? My home is spotless. I have small children. I clean the floor more often than I breathe, and there's always food prepared. I specifically wake up earlier than everyone else, and by the time they wake up, the table is bursting with food. My patience isn't endless. If my mother-in-law wants a war, she'll get a war. I'll quickly teach her not to pry into other people's wallets, even if it's her son's wallet. I returned to the kitchen. My mother-in-law was gone. "Now, where's Mom?" I asked. "I sent her home. She probably got offended that I stood up for you. She stormed out like a bat out of hell," Kyle replied. "What was that all about anyway?" I wondered. "I don't know, darling, but I promise I'll talk to her when she calms down. By the way, I've already ordered the washing machine. It'll be delivered in a few days," Kyle said. "Well done, thank you, dear. But don't talk to Mom. Just bring home a couple of your work pants and dirty shirts," I suggested. Christy, why? My husband gave me a puzzled look. I'll bring them when the washing machine arrives, he added. He looked at me and immediately understood everything from my expression. So what's on your mind? Tell me, Kyle was interested. I'll just teach her a little lesson, and please don't make a monster out of me. Just a little lesson, that's all. I promise. No violence, I said. We laughed and sat down to have lunch. By the next morning, I had everything ready for my plan to educate my mother-in-law. As soon as Agnes appeared at the door, she stumbled over a large checkered bag. Christy, can't you find a better place for your junk? She grumbled discontentedly and walked into the apartment, stepping over the obstacle. Well, did you buy it? She asked. Buy what? Kyle didn't understand. I mean, your gold washing machine, she continued. No, Mom, we didn't buy it. We listened to your advice, he explained. Well, good for you. Don't waste money on nonsense, Agnes replied. Then I joined the conversation more earnestly. Mom, this is all great and fine, but our old washing machine has also given up the ghost. So, as a dutiful daughter-in-law, I humbly bow my head before you and ask for help. You won't refuse, will you? I asked with a smile. Such words even made the woman blush, and she graciously nodded to me. Well, I'll help, of course, but with what? I don't have money, if that's what you're asking, she got worried. Oh no, what money are you talking about? I'm ashamed to admit I still haven't learned to wash by hand, so I need a lesson from you, Mother, I said as softly as I could. Without waiting for a response, I took my mother-in-law by the arm, while Kyle grabbed the bag that was standing at the door, and the strange company proceeded downstairs. Where are we going? Aren't we going to do the washing in the bathroom? Agnes asked, puzzled. No, I cannot afford to do that. Our bathtub is pristine white, and the kids' clothes and Kyle's work clothes will dirty it so much that I won't be able to clean it afterward. We're going to the river. You said you knew how to wash laundry in the river, didn't you? I asked, leading the way. No, I didn't say that, the mother-in-law muttered uncertainly, but she got into the car. For a good hour or more, I tried not to burst into laughter, but with each passing minute it became increasingly difficult. After all, my mother-in-law, who was trying so hard to convince me that washing in the river nowadays is normal, had already stumbled into the river a couple of times, lost her brush, and dropped the soap into the water. She constantly hissed something under her breath and tried to catch the kids' pants that were floating away, refusing to stand in one place, let alone get washed. Kyle even retreated into the car, from where periodic explosions of his laughter could be heard. Mom, maybe I can help you, I graciously piped to my sweating mother-in-law. That was the last straw. Agnes jumped up, threw the pants right at me, and let out a volley of profanity. Curse this laundry. I won't agree to this again. Don't you even dare ask for such a thing. Do you understand me? She stormed to the car and slumping in the back seat. Son, drive me home now, she shouted. Mom, what about Christy? She still needs to finish the washing. I need my work clothes by the day after tomorrow, and it will take them a whole day to dry. Can't you go and help her? Kyle asked, concerned. I won't go. Don't even ask me to. And what kind of Stone Age practice is doing the laundry in the river? For God's sake, just buy her that washing machine and let her do as she pleases, Agnes insisted. From that day on, peace reigned in the family. The mother-in-law learned her lesson and no longer pestered me with her criticisms. The washing machine was delivered the day after the education session, and Agnes never ceased to praise this modern appliance. Now she only came over on prior notice and only to spend time with her grandchildren. If she heard something she didn't like, she immediately remembered that river and those pants. Then she became deaf and blind, letting us decide for ourselves what we needed in the household. She preferred to stay silent and not meddle in our affairs. And of course, she would help, but not with money. It was the one thing she wasn't willing to do.